Alright, so we've talked a little bit about the movement options, we've talked a little bit about the attack options. Now I really want to get into the defensive options. This is also a very important part of fighting games, learning how to defend. Now, the initial way and the most common way you'll see in a lot of fighting games, the way to defend, you'll notice that I've hinted at this before, is to hold the controller away from the opponent, also known as back or forward in numpad notation. If I hold back on the controller, you can see that Gran starts walking backwards. If I hold down back on the controller, I'll just be crouching, same as if I'm holding any of the other three directions. However, when I'm holding down back, I'm also defending. As you'll see from this, I have Catalina set to counter-attack me when I attack. If I hold just back afterwards, I will defend against her move. The reason why there's a down back as well is because that way you can also defend while crouching. And the reason why you have two different stances by which you can defend, whether it's standing or crouching, is because there are moves that just naturally hit one direction or the other. If I set Catalina to respond with her crouching U, her crouching unique attack, which I said was a low attack for all the enemies, you can see if I'm walking backwards, look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the white dot, you know, being on top of left on the virtual pad down there. I'll hold backwards after hitting light attack, and even though I'm in a defensive position, I still get hit. That is because that attack hits low. So in order to defend against it, I have to hold down back, and then I can defend against this attack. There you go. However, if you're holding down back, there are a certain set class of moves that you cannot defend against, that you have to stand defend against. One of them, for example, is Catalina or anybody's jump attacks. As long as you have a jumping attack, you have to hold back to block it. If you hold down back, you will get hit. There's another mechanic in this game that we will get into a little bit in some more of the systems section, but there are attacks known as universal overheads or overhead attack, as you can see over here. Overhead is the common nomenclature for moves that are performed on the ground that you actually are forced to stand up and defend against. Everybody has a universal overhead attack, and almost every character, they leap forward when they do this attack. In this situation, if I hold back, I can defend against it. However, if I hold down back, I will get hit. So these moves, you do have to stand up and block, and every character has access to a universal overhead. And it is always prefaced by that spark. Please note the spark that you see appear over Catalina before she performs this move. This way you don't have to get used to what everybody's overhead attack looks like. You just have to be accustomed to the sound effect as well as the spark. If you can learn to react to that, that will help you stand up and defend. So like I said, holding back will allow you to block these attacks. So if I happen to be crouching, if I see this, I have enough time to stand up and block. It is something that is humans can react to this in time. It'll take a little bit of practice, but as soon as you see that spark, you can react to stand and defend against it. But the main point is that that is the difference between stand defense and crouching defense. Most moves in this game, you'll be able to block either way. I can defend this while standing or while crouching. So it's just the jump attacks, the universal overhead attacks, as well as all low attacks. And again, different characters have different lows for their crouching buttons. Some of them, like Gran, has a crouching A that hits low. Some characters' crouching A's actually don't hit low, if I'm not mistaken. But it's going to depend on the character for many of the buttons that will hit high or low, except for crouching U, which will always be a low attack. And crouching A, I think for the most part, most characters will have a low attack on there. Now, if you look at the virtual controller at the bottom of the screen over there, you'll see that extra orange button marked G sitting off to the right side over there. Depending on how you configure your joystick, it'll be a different button on where you set it, but by default, it is going to be mapped on a PlayStation 4 controller to the R2 trigger here. So if you see this, when I hold this button over here, it makes Gran block. This is an alternate way to defend against the attacks of the opponent. Rather than holding back on the controller or holding down back on the controller, I can simply just hold the guard button. Similar to something like Mortal Kombat. If you guys have played Mortal Kombat, there's a block button. Same thing with Soul Calibur. If you're from Soul Calibur, there's a guard button. This lets you defend at the press of a button. And it's going to be the exact same thing. If I hold this, it will automatically help me defend. I don't even need to move the controller in any direction. I'm just holding the button. But you still need to defend standing versus crouching. So if I set the opponent once again, if I set Catalina once again to sweep me with the crouching unique attack after she defends, and I hold guard, I will still get hit. So in order to block in this situation with the guard button, I have to hold down on the controller and hit guard as well. So that will change my stance here. One of the advantages of this guard button, which ends up becoming very, very important, is that a lot of characters in this game will have the ability to try to open you up and attack you by going through you and going to the other side of you. Don't worry about how I'm doing this right now, but characters can pass through the opponent and then attack from the other side out of nowhere. Now, if you're a player that's used to holding back to defend and you don't react to this fast enough, I can hit you from the other side. You'll see this from characters like Lancelot and Narmaya, who have ways to jump to the other side of you very quickly and attack on the other side. And if you are only using back and down back to defend, suddenly, because you have now switched side, your back and down back directions turn into forward and down forward. So you are no longer defending, which means the opponent can catch you off guard and hit you from the other side. This is known as a left-right mix-up because they're trying to get your controller to be held in the wrong direction so that they can open you up that way. They can break your defense that way. Now, if I just happen to be holding the guard button, however, it doesn't matter what side the opponent goes to. No matter what, I'm always going to be able to defend. So, if I have Catalina guard here, for example, and record her guarding for a while, and then I play back and have her guard, it doesn't matter which side I go to, she's going to be defending just because she's holding the guard button, which is a very important facet of this game. So you can see, even though she's facing the wrong direction while she's holding that guard button, she will still defend no matter what. So that's very important. So using the guard button and learning when to use the guard button is very important for certain characters like Lancelot and Narmaya, who have the ability to put you into these left-right mix-ups. There are two more defensive mechanics that are accessible via the defense button over here. If you hold guard, and while you are standing, or actually even if you are crouching, if I hit forward on the controller, you'll see my character slide forward a little bit. And you'll hear, "Here I go!" from Gran. I can also hold back and you'll see the character kind of do a back step. There you go. So what those are a spot dodge. If you're used to something such as Smash Brothers, it's the same as holding shield and hitting down. In this game, it's holding guard and hitting back. You'll perform a spot dodge. And what this does is this allows you to avoid attacks. Like so. And then after you are done with it, you can counterattack. You can also just use this to avoid projectiles from a screen away. A character like Catalina, for example, can throw projectiles at you from a screen away, so I can hold guard and hit back, and I can avoid those as well. The one weakness with spot dodges, however, actually there's two weaknesses to spot dodges, and I'll get into that in just a little bit, but the first weakness is you can be thrown out of your spot dodges. Now, I haven't talked about throws yet. That is something that I will be getting into in just a little bit, but it's another offensive option where you will actually grab your opponent and throw them. Now, of course, depending on the characters, a lot of different animations going into it, but just keep in mind that the initial part is literally a grab on the opponent. So I've set Catalina here to throw me, but if I try to spot dodge and then have her throw, you will get thrown out of the spot dodge anyway. So spot dodges are only also known as evade in the official terminology, evade/spot dodge. If you actually try to spot dodge and they throw you, they will grab you. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. So no matter what timing you try to do it at, you will get thrown. The other thing too is that at the very tail end of the spot dodge, basically when he starts coming back, you'll see him move back and then he comes back forward. While he's coming back forward, you do become vulnerable. So if your opponent calls out the fact that you are going to do a spot dodge and they are ready for it, they can actually hit you out of the end of a spot dodge, like so. And you can see, I was holding back and holding the guard button the entire time, and I couldn't defend against it. One also thing you'll notice is that my character flashed red, and it scored Catalina something known as a counter hit. And we'll be talking about counter hits a little bit later on as well. Another system mechanic in the game that's important to understand. But that's how it works. If you see someone perform an evade or a spot dodge, you can throw it, and you can also bait the opponent into doing it and not attack, and then catch them while they're coming back into the end of their spot dodge. There's a vulnerable period where you can actually punish them out of the spot dodge.